Speaker Pelosi has said you shouldn't debate the president because he has no fidelity to fact or truth. Does she have a point?
Well, she has. Look, the people know the president's a liar. I mean, they know that. It's not like it's going to come as a surprise to them. My guess is it's going to be just straight attack. They're going to be mostly personal. That's the only thing he knows how to do. He doesn't know how to debate the facts because he's not that smart. He doesn't know that many facts.
Former Vice President Joe Biden spoke exclusively to our Stephanie Ruhle today. He was in Washington earlier to pay his respects to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and is now back in Delaware to prepare for Tuesday's debate. Back with us again tonight, Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, professor and assistant dean at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin, and David Plouffe, former Obama campaign manager and senior advisor to President Obama. He's also on the board of directors for the Obama Foundation. His latest book is A Citizen's Guide to Beating Donald Trump. Welcome tonight. David, I want to start with you on the subject of debates. Joe Biden has done a lot of debates, yes, but he's never done a debate against somebody like Donald Trump, who, as Nancy Pelosi said, has no fidelity to the truth and is also willing to get very dirty and very personal. Remember what he did back in 2016 with Hillary Clinton when he brought out Bill Clinton's accusers at the debate. What does the Biden team need to be doing right now to prepare him for how ugly it is likely to get?
Well, Katie, Joe Biden did do really well in two high-profile, high-pressure debates. Sarah Palin, unconventional. Paul Ryan, a little more conventional. But after Barack Obama's bomb of the first debate, we really needed him to pick up the ticket. So I think you need to – the big things are the big things. You want to win exchanges around the pandemic and Trump's mismanaging of it, and that you've got a plan. Who's going to look after the middle class, people in poverty, who's going to repair alliances. But you can't prepare for Trump. I mean, he is somebody who, so Joe Biden is going to have to be both prepared, but also prepared to be very flexible. And I think at the end of the day, the most important thing here is for Biden to be tough on Trump. This is a very vulnerable incumbent president. His approval ratings are terrible. He's losing in head-to-head races. He's in the low 40s in many states, while his opponent's at 50 or close to it. So you got to make him pay a price for that. Even this notion this week of Trump suggesting he's not going to abide by the election returns, Joe Biden needs to punish him for that, because 75 to 80% of the country believes whoever wins the election should be the president. It's sad, by the way, it's not 100%. So I think you need to be prepared for Trump lying for sure. I don't think what you can do is fact check him, and say, well, Mr. President, you're wrong there. I think what Joe Biden did in that interview showed was great, which is just call him a liar. You're lying. Here's the truth. Here's what I'm going to do. But I think you have to punish him. And I think that will help you both with swing voters, but also with Democrats, because they've waited almost 4 long years for Donald Trump to be held to account. And next Tuesday night, with most of the country watching, he can be really put on trial.
Let me ask you one more, because you're intimately, you're close to Joe Biden. You know how he debates, and you know what bothers him. Let me read this from the Washington Post. The prospect of a cage match between a president for whom no subject is off limits and a challenger who can be openly emotional is making some Biden advisors nervous. They see a fine line between Biden's passion and empathy, which can appeal to voters, and the raw anger that sometimes gets him in trouble and could undercut his pitch as a calming alternative to a president who thrives on chaos. I want to challenge that idea, because that was the mold that Hillary Clinton took in 2016. Same thing for Jeb Bush, for Marco Rubio, for Ted Cruz, for John Kasich, et cetera, et cetera. Don't get down in the dirt with him. When you wrestle with a pig always wins. That's the saying. Why not get down in the dirt with him? If he gets personal, why not get personal back? Why not be the fighter that Joe Biden said he was going to be when it came to Donald Trump, the person who could go toe-to-toe with him?
I think he's going to have to. I mean, it doesn't mean you need to go to subterranean depths, but I think that's what people want to see. Both swing voters, by the way, there's a lot of voters who've not checked into this race yet, and they have heard questions. Is Biden up to this? Trump saying he's senile. So by being tough and taking on the bully and dominating the bully, not throughout the entire debate, but, when you have your chance. And then I think it will really help you with turnout. I think he needs to fight for the country. He needs to fight for the presidency. But what makes these presidential debates so interesting, Katie, is you can prepare all you want. These are human beings. And once they step on that stage, you don't know what's going to happen. So for Joe Biden, I think the challenge will be when his family gets attacked. Of course, there's any number of places to take that back on Donald Trump's family. But his record, votes he cast 40 years ago, things he said 30 years ago, he shouldn't chase down that rabbit hole. He needs to put Trump on trial and then show the American people what he's going to do in his first 4 years as president.
Victoria, I wonder how many convincible voters there are right now. I know David was alluding to some swing voters who maybe haven't been paying attention up until now. There were 4.4 million 2012 Obama voters who didn't vote in 2016. More than a third of those were black voters. Is Joe Biden doing enough right now to convince those voters who didn't turn out to turn out in November?
Well, it's tough campaigning during a pandemic, and that is why this debate is so critical. Going back into past debates, Pew has done really good research on, who do the debates sway? And on average, over the last couple of elections, we've seen that about 10% of voters say, you know what? I was swayed. I made up my mind during the debate or right after the debate. So 10% of voters in an election as close as this is critical. And, building on what David said, he has to be tough. Biden has to be tough. But for me, the take home is if I had one piece of advice for the Biden campaign, it's asking that having that Reagan statement, in 1980, where Reagan finished off that last debate saying, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Because there's going to be a lot of disco balling from Trump and personal attacks and just randomness. But at the end of the day, people have been dying. People have been losing their jobs. People are losing health care. And Joe Biden needs to make people remember what the reality of the last 4 years has been.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.